Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Marty Malt.
Hey guys, welcome to a quick movie breakdown by the Anti-Critic. Today's movie comes out of 1991 and is titled The Dark Backward. This odd little gem stars Judd Nelson as Marty Malt, an awkward, scrawny loser that dreams of making it big as a stand-up comedian. Playing opposite of Judd is the late and great Bill Paxton. He plays Gus, Marty's best friend. Gus is a loud, accordion-playing slob, and he has quite the affinity for very large women. Laura Flynn Boyle is Marty's girlfriend Rosarita, an often sad, often crying, downtrodden waitress who just gave up on life years ago, it seems. The Dark Backward takes place in a quasi-dystopian universe where both Marty and Gus work for Blump's sanitation company as garbage men. Not only do they do less than the minimum amount of work cleaning up their disgusting, filthy city, they like to scrounge around for hidden treasures in the piles of trash all over the city dump at the end of their workday. Here, Gus finds a pair of large earrings in the clenched fist of a nude dead woman, and Marty scores an authentic Oriental rug.
It's an authentic Oriental rug.
Wow! How do you know it's authentic?
Look at the craftsmanship.
It's in the evening, however, where we will find Marty exploring his true passion, which is stand-up comedy. And he's managed to book a few nights a week at Sid's nightclub, where we will see a sweaty and nervous Marty try to run through his routine. It's obvious by the reaction of the audience that Marty's jokes are as terrible as his terrible stage presence. Even his deathly ill, chain-smoking mother thinks he stinks. But after every show, he always has his good buddy Gus to cheer him up and encourage him to push on. At work the next day, Gus sees an odd bump growing on a shirtless Marty's back, and they both shrug it off as just a bug bite.
Ah, on your back, a bug bite or something.
Oh, well.
This bug bite, however, becomes pretty important later. Later that night, after yet another failed stand-up attempt, Gus meets Marty at Marty's house to excitedly tell him about how he met the famed talent agent Jackie Chrome. And Jackie Chrome is played by none other than the great Wayne Newton. Gus tells Marty that he had invited Jackie to Marty's next show. Obviously excited, Marty jumps up, exposing his bare back to Gus, and Gus notices the bump again on Marty's back, and we can see that it has gotten a little bit bigger. He tells Marty that he needs to see a doctor before his next show because
The last thing we need is for you to get spine cancer before our big break.
And at the filthy and grungy doctor's office, Marty meets Dr. Scurvy, played by James Caan, who is to medicine as Willy Wonka is to, I don't know, child daycare.
You're going to love this. Just love it.
After a quick diagnosis of an odd little bump, Marty receives his treatment. His bill $250 and his sent on his way. Back at Sid's nightclub, Marty performs in front of the same depressed crowd, but the only member of the audience that Marty cares about is Jackie Chrome. And, as per the usual, his jokes bomb. Like this not-so-dandy one.
Seeing all of you out there tonight reminds me of my eye doctor. He told me I needed new glasses. I told him I already had 4 pair. He said I needed more. So I got 4 more pair of glasses just to be on the safe side. So now, 16 people can drink in my house.
After a few more terrible jokes, Jackie has clearly heard enough, and he storms out of the nightclub, followed by Gus, who is desperately trying to talk Jackie into staying. But Jackie isn't having any of it because
Marty Malt has to be the worst stand-up comic I have ever had the misfortune to see.
back at Marty's house, after Gus has cheered Marty up some, Gus sees Marty's bare back once again.
Turn around, Marty.
And the lump on Marty's back has changed, and Gus positions Marty in front of a mirror so he can see it for himself. And Marty doesn't take it too well. And after a closer look, they not only realize that the bump has turned into a baby hand that can move, but it's pretty painful as well. And they decide that another trip to Dr. Scurvy's office is way more than necessary. So, Marty gets a second treatment of professional medical medicine. To make matters worse, Marty's horrified girlfriend, Rosarita, dumps him because
People don't grow hands out of their back! What's wrong with you?
And overnight, we see that Marty's little backhand thing has grown even more. Because of his new growth, Marty loses his gig at Sid's nightclub.
I'm running a nightclub here, not a circus sideshow.
But Sid, no one's gonna see it.
I'm gonna see it. Now get the hell out of here.
And later, a concerned Gus shows up at Marty's house with Dr. Scurvy, who asks,
What's that growing out of your back? An arm?
and then proceeds to administer his third and hopefully final treatment. But unfortunately, and you may have guessed it, Dr. Scurvy's treatment failed yet again. And Marty's third back arm thing, it grows back overnight. Gus figures that they should try Jackie Chrome again. Maybe there's an audience for Marty's freak show condition?
This is a mistake. Marty!
Inside Jackie's office, Marty and Gus wait for the audition of Marjorie Zip and her human xylophone to end. Hey, look there, that's Tony Cox from Bad Santa. It doesn't take long for Jackie to recognize Marty and demand that he and Gus leave his office immediately.
I said get the hell out!
But Gus is persistent and shows Jackie Marty's back.
What if we hear the old, the old fake arm out of the back routine?
Once Jackie gets his peepers on Marty's back arm, he becomes interested and then excited.
It's real! It's real!
After deciding to take Marty on as a client, Jackie tells Marty that his stand-up comedy is terrible, and worse, Marty Malt is a terrible stage name. And he tells Marty that the name is more important than the talent, which is good because Marty is just terrible. So, after some thought, he lands on
Dizzy. The three-armed wonder comic.
and also thinks that Gus should be Marty's musical accompaniment on the accordion. During a montage of Marty getting a new haircut and a manicure and a new suit, Jackie tells Gus and Marty about all their new bookings, and it seems like Marty is finally getting some wins. A newly invented Desi, performs his first new gig from Jackie with the accordion playing Gus and the highlight of Marty's third arm, and yet again, the show, well, it sucks. Checking in, Jackie wants to know what could be the problem, and Marty confesses that he misses Rosarita and can't concentrate on his routine. Jackie tells Marty to just go meet with her, but Marty refuses because he is too afraid to go talk to her. Gus tells Jackie that he will do it. And later that night, instead of talking to her, they have sex. After a few more shows and a few more bombs, Marty and Gus perform at a joint called Sloppy's, where they stink it up yet again. And it's here where Jackie tries to convince the bar owner to still give Marty and Gus a few more bookings later in the week. Does anyone recognize this guy? It's none other than Billy Bob Thornton. Seriously, look it up if you don't believe me. It's an uncredited part for Billy, but he is listed in the Dark Backwards IMDb.com page. Sloppy's owner wants nothing more to do with the Desi show and boots the three of them out of his bar. All is not lost, though, for our dear Marty, as Jackie calls both he and Gus into his office the next day. And on their way, Marty asks Gus how his talk with Rosarito went, and he replies,
She said she hates guys with 3 arms.
Pretty jerk move, Gus. Once at Jackie's office, Jackie excitedly drops on them that they have been booked on the Twinkie Doodle and the Amateur Spotlight. It's a popular television kids show filled with entertainers of all kinds, like Apple Gianahan, the man with 1,000 faces, who just makes different shapes with his mouth, like this. And Danny Gickel and his fantastic gymnastic, which is really just Danny doing this kind of stuff on a dirty, gross mattress. And those gymnastics are not so fantastic, Danny. Backstage at Twinkie Doodles, an overly nervous Marty with stage fright is encouraged to push forward by Gus and Jackie. And with new material, Marty and Gus do their act, and you guessed it, they bombed. Not even the little kids liked it. Even his mother, who was watching from home, changes the channel. But not all is lost, guys, because Marty was just discovered by Dirk Delta. And yep, that's Rob Lowe. He's the talent scout for the Nightlight show starring Sam Dugan in Hollywood, California. And he wants to book Marty on the show. The only hitch is that Dirk just wants Marty, not Gus.
I want Desi, the 3-armed wonder comic. I have very little use for an accordion player.
But super loyal Marty refuses to go to Hollywood without Gus. And surprisingly, Dirk gives in and lets Gus come along.
Fellas, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I'll take them both.
At the thought of fame, an excited Marty does this thing. Then packs some clothes and a rusty old Tonka truck, and then he does this. After getting a good night's sleep, we see Marty unknowingly waking up to a new development. And Gus reacts. Then Marty reacts. Ticked off that their train to fame is probably broken, and after a mini freak out, Gus gets this idea.
I got an idea!
I don't think it's gonna work.
Just shut up and trust me.
And back at Jackie's office, so they can finalize travel plans to Hollywood, Gus and Marty are acting a little off. Marty clearly doesn't think that Gus's ridiculous plan is going to work, and Jackie takes notice. Feeling something's wrong, Jackie intuitively asks Marty to show him the third arm again before he makes a call to Hollywood. And after some back and forth of Jackie wanting to see Marty's arm and the guy's not wanting to, Marty just decides to do a real quick spin to ease Jackie's suspicions that something isn't right. And unconvinced that everything is okay, Jackie wants to see the spin again and again and again until... And realizing the jig is up, a furious Jackie roughs up Marty a little bit. Once everyone has calmed down a bit, and after some discussion about this new problem, Jackie, Gus, and Marty all agree that honesty is the best policy. So Jackie calls Dirk Delta up in Hollywood to tell the truth about Marty's third arm being gone. And after the phone call, Jackie tells the boys that since Marty only has 2 arms, Dirk has no use for Marty and his crappy comedy. However, since Marty's spot on the Nightlight show has already been booked and the arrangements have already been made, Dirk wants Jackie to send out the accordion player Gus to be on the show. And Gus is more than excited. But Marty's a bit bummed that Gus didn't show the same loyalty to Marty as Marty had shown Gus backstage at Twinkie Doodles. I mean, why would Gus be loyal? He banged Rosarita. The guy's Gus. Still a good friend, Marty sees Gus off as the limo picks him up for the airport. Maybe hoping that Gus will have a conscience, refuse to leave without Marty, but no dice. Even with Jackie in tow, they leave Marty behind. Back where he started, Marty returns to his stand-up routine, this time without any new material. Instead of saying the old lame, stupid jokes, Marty just gets to the microphone and starts complaining about living with a third arm. But this time the audience chuckles, and the more Marty complains, the more they laugh. And so the movie ends. I guess this is a happy ending of sorts. I mean, Marty got what he always wanted, not fame like we thought, but just an opportunity to make people laugh, even if it was at his own expense. And so there you have it, 1991's The Dark Backward. I'll tell you, I enjoyed it, but I also like the more obscure movies from the darker corners of Hollywood. And this one didn't disappoint. And if you liked this quick movie breakdown, I would sure appreciate you clicking the thumbs up button. And if you'd like to see more of these videos, please subscribe so you'll always be notified of our new uploads. And if you have any comments of a movie that you would like a quick movie breakdown done for, just drop it below. I try to read every comment that y'all leave. Until the next video, thanks a ton for watching, guys. Annie Critic out.